On episode 272 of the Tennis Files podcast, you learn about the most epic stories in tennis with Andrew Reiley. Hey, and welcome to another episode of the show. This is your host, Mirban Iranshad, and today I'm excited to bring you a different type of episode from the norm. This one is more on the entertainment side, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It is about very interesting tennis stories, and I came across Andrew Reiley. He is friends with Will Hamilton from Fuzzy Yellow Balls, who's a good friend of mine and a practice partner out here near me. He's in DC, I'm in Maryland. And at the City Open, Andrew was a guest of Will's in Will's suite, and I was there as well. And so I met Andrew and enjoyed chatting with him, and he is the founder of Cult Tennis YouTube channel, which is a really fantastic and very interesting channel because it brings out some often not well-known stories in the world of tennis, but Andrew does such a great job at narrating and putting together some really great footage that these videos have gotten millions of views. I think the one about blue clay has gotten maybe like 6 million. I mean, I could be off, but it's many millions of people have watched that one. But Andrew is also a former Division III college tennis player, and he majored in Nutrition and Dietetics, I believe at SUNY Oneonta. Hopefully I pronounced that right. But in any case, we do have some really fun stories to talk about in the tennis world, including an incredible one that I just couldn't believe about a tennis player who faked his entire career. How about that one for a tennis story, huh? We also talk about Boris Becker and how he wasted his fortune through some very minus EV, if you will, moves. That's expected value. I'm a poker player, so I like using some of that terminology. And then we also talk about tennis balls and why they're not really good for the environment, actually, and some other cool stories. So I think you'll really enjoy this one, and we'll take a slight break this week from learning how to improve our game, on the technical, tactical, mental, or fitness side. And so, but yeah, I think it's a really entertaining one. And without further ado, here is my interview with Andrew Reiley. Hey everybody, welcome to the Tennis Files podcast. It's really a pleasure to have on Andrew Reiley from Cult Tennis, amazing tennis YouTube channel that you all should check out for sure. Andrew, last time I saw you was at the City Open, and it's really great to see you here again to talk about some really cool tennis stories. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm really actually glad we connected because, in the field that I do, I really don't get to connect with that many people, at events and whatnot because I'm mainly, working from home. I wish I was able to go out and film more, which I would like to do for the future. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm glad to be here as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. And I really enjoyed hanging out with you at City Open with our mutual friend, Will Hamilton from FYB. And so I was going through your channel the past couple of days, and I've obviously seen videos before that, but just a lot of really interesting stories that I really think that people will get a kick out of, us discussing for a bit here, and then of course, checking out at the Cult Tennis YouTube channel. So we'll have a link to your channel, obviously, in the show notes page. But one of the first ones that I thought was really funny was the tennis star who faked his entire career. So it's pretty amazing that, you have this guy from, I think, was it North Macedonia, and he's basically able to captivate, the biggest names in the sport, even though, and fake like he was a pro when he wasn't. So can you kind of go into that story? Because that was really amazing, amazing feat.
Yeah, to preface, it's kind of interesting because the topics that I find most interesting in tennis tend not to do the best in terms of views and analytics and whatnot. I think that video may have crossed maybe the 65,000 view mark at this point, which is definitely lower for my channel. But it's some of those controversial, doesn't necessarily have to do with the on-court aspect of the sport itself, but it's some behind-the-scenes stuff that I personally find interesting, and I'm sure a lot of other people find interesting, but a lot of the regular viewers of my channel not too interested in. But anyway, yeah, so the kid's name was Darko Grincherov, from North Macedonia, and to do the little cliff notes for anyone who has not heard of this kid or watched the video, it's about this teenager at the time who basically fooled a bunch of professional tennis players on social media of the likes of James Blake, Serena Williams, into believing that he himself was an up-and-coming professional with real results and, a tremendous backstory in terms of the fact that he recovered from a terrible stroke, could not walk for quite a while, and that he was on the warpath, basically coming back to play big tournaments like Australian Open, Wimbledon, and it was even interviewed by the BBC on their international broadcast about his story and his thoughts on some other tennis news. It's really remarkable, the social engineering tactics he used to get an audience on social media and views on his videos, and the amount of press he got. And eventually it was Ben Rothenberg, the noted tennis journalist, who kind of exposed the whole sham and brought him down in some sense. I mean, it wasn't necessarily huge news outside the tennis sphere, but for someone who's interested in tennis, it was a kind of a big deal that someone, of this very small Eastern European country was able to manage such a feat to get in touch with big name tennis players and have Serena Williams shout him out and say that she can't wait to meet him one day, meet her daughter Olympia, and to be interviewed by these noted news sources. So yeah, it was a really fantastic story, and a lot more. That was the very shortened version, but a lot more that kind of went into it. If anyone wants to check out the video, yeah, super interesting. And that's kind of my channel, Cult Tennis. That's what I like to talk about. It's a lot of these stories that people don't really talk about. I'm not huge into talking about current events and, daily, news, stories and whatnot. And, that's a huge market and people do love to hear about those things. But what I'm interested in is the kind of, off the beaten path stories in tennis that you rarely hear about. And I'm sure other people are too. And that's, I guess, what people come to my channel to hear and watch.
Yeah, for sure, Andrew. And yeah, it was interesting. I did notice that, some of your other videos get so many hundreds of thousands of views, and this one, like you said, 60K or something like that. But it was one of my favorites just because, I don't know, the way the guy just tricked everybody. And first of all, when you showed the video of the guy playing, I immediately started laughing because you can tell from his form, like you said, that he's I don't know, maybe a 3.5 or something like that. It did not look very good. So did it help that he was from North Macedonia as opposed to the USA? Because I really just wonder, and maybe, I don't know, why didn't people just check out his results? Couldn't he have been found out if anybody did any due diligence, or is there more to the story for that?
So the biggest thing was that because he was from North Macedonia, and this is kind of where my research led me into coming to this conclusion, North Macedonia doesn't have a huge sporting presence around the world. They have some, big football players in the past, but in terms of tennis, it's very rare to have someone within the top 500. And a country like that, they're willing to take, and this is not to say anything bad about the country or the sporting officials or whatever, but the news sources want to report on a big name tennis player coming out of the country because it's major pride for the country and gives them, decent international recognition. So I'm sure a bunch of the reporters and news outlets are able to give a little leeway in terms of who they're promoting and what's going on there. So he was able to, again, through social engineering, basically, he, faked some results and sent in some official looking documents showing that he was who he said he was when he really wasn't. And the news reporters really looking for, an up and coming player out of their country. They took the bait pretty easily without doing fact checking and going about that, video of him playing, which was, if tennis levels, he was maybe a 3.5 at best, low 4.0, which could not make most Division III college tennis teams. But no, it was very bad. And the thing was, because it was, it's North Macedonia, when you kind of go take a step higher, a lot higher to, news sources like the BBC, they don't have much to go on themselves. They kind of just, see this foreign news site with not in English and not many pictures or videos. He did have an ITF record because he enrolled in and pulled out of an event, just one event, but that did create an ITF record for him. So it's a bunch of these confounding factors that kind of led up to him faking it because no one really knew who he was, but he was foreign and kind of got the support of other tennis players through these means as well. So it's kind of just everyone going in a circle, believing what they hear from other people and other news sources, and no one really going down to the source to figure out if it was actually true or not. So that's really the gist of it. A country, desperate for a tennis star, willing to report on anyone who claimed to be so. And with some words of encouragement from other professionals, he essentially became a professional in many people's eyes.
Yeah, and I think it was really funny how Darko, like he said like through via Twitter that like he was that Adidas like took him on, and then like Adidas thanked him, but he wasn't actually on the team, right? Like he wasn't sponsored in any.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm trying to actually remember how that came about. I forget what Adidas's excuse was about the whole situation, but again, it's just so bold for someone to outright on Twitter at a company saying thank you for the sponsorship with, again, he was a verified profile, professional tennis player, had a bunch of likes, comments, whether they were fake or not. I guess a country could be, a brand could be forgiven for not doing their due diligence on this random player who some agent must have signed off on and must have been like, of course, this person is our player. He says he is. I mean, he's verified, has all these fans. I mean, this person going to outright blatantly lie, which is, of course, what he was doing. So again, it's once you kind of get over the initial hurdle of getting a few people to believe you, it's so much easier to keep going forward. As long as you kind of hide your tracks semi-decently, you can really, take some big leaps upward in terms of verifiability and getting people to believe you. And, that goes with everything, the Tinder swindler, on Netflix and all of these documentaries where people are just so blatantly just so blatant in what they do. It's pretty amazing. And we have seen other people in other sports doing it as well. It's just really amazing in tennis how, it's not like a coach will sign you on, you'll sit on the bench and you're a player, you have to actually play the sport. And he had so many excuses as to why he was not playing tournaments. Crazy story. I'm very glad I reported on it, did a lot of research, despite the fact that it was not the most popular video. But, for people like you who enjoy the story, that's who it's made for.
Yeah. And I appreciate your work into that one and obviously all the others. And one more question on that is, do you know if any of the celebs like Serena and James Blake, who I've had on the podcast and summits, like, did any of them like, put forth a statement like after they found out or anything like that, like, oops, It's one of those things where it's so embarrassing to have been roped into that in many aspects. It's just, again, because it was not a high profile story outside the tennis sphere, which, compared to other industries is really not that big. It's not making the front page of New York Times. It was pushed under the rug, and I'm pretty sure James and Serena and, a few other noted players just chose to forgot about it, or maybe even never even heard of it. I mean, I'm sure Serena sent that, saw the story quickly on social media, DM'd the player, and that was the last time she thought of him as well. So I'm not to say whether they had any regrets or not that any retractions as far as I've seen. Yeah, good stuff, Reiley. And one that brought back some cool memories for me was of your videos was the weird loophole that let anybody play the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Because I actually played. Well, I guess you can explain it, but yeah, I actually played in this tournament like a couple of times, and I thought it was really cool. But kind of just go through that one, and what became of the tournament.
Yeah, so for those listening who have never heard of this event or what we're talking about here, I put out a video detailing the story of the U.S. Open national playoffs. And basically what that was, obviously the U.S. Open in New York City, one of the 4 Grand Slams. Now, it's called the U.S. Open, which should mean that anyone is allowed to play, which really is not the case, of course. However, the U.S. Open national playoffs was a nationwide tournament in which the person who won the tournament essentially was able to qualify and become a wild card into the qualifying draw of the U.S. Open. Now, of course, was not an easy feat. Only one player received this wild card, but they were 12 or 13 sectional tournaments held around the country. The winners of each of those sectional tournaments, which again, anyone could sign up for. You did not have to have a ranking, any experience. You signed up, paid your fee. It was pretty expensive, like $150 a person. And if you win your sectional tournament, those 12 to 16 players would be put in a knockout tournament at some stadium around the country, and the winner of that second tournament was granted the wild card into the U.S. Open qualifying draw. And if you won the 3 matches of U.S. Open qualifying, which no wild card ever did in the 6 or so years that the event was held, would be granted a main draw spot. And they eventually expanded it to mixed doubles and doubles. So it's actually a fairly big event in many ways towards the end. But again, no one ever qualified for the main draw. However, I believe can't remember if it was doubles or mixed doubles, you were automatically granted a main draw spot because there was no qualifying in one of those draws. However, of those winners, no one ever made it past the first round of the main draw there. So very interesting concept. I think many were not too happy about how it was run because I guess, well, we can get into that. You can ask me about that, but it was very interesting. And yeah, you said you played in it. I was actually signed up to play one year myself. I'm from Long Island, so I was signed up to play the one at the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows. They held the sectional tournament there. However, I was sick that week, so I couldn't play. Oh. But my brother played, and my older brother, and he actually played a pretty good kid and was destroyed like 6-0, 6-0 in the first round. So it's really funny to see the level of, you have some absolute beginners playing in these, because they throw everyone together in the same draw. You have some beginners playing semi-professionals in many ways. So the disparity is pretty hilarious, and it's pretty cool to see, honestly. It's a very rare time that a competitive match goes on between a professional and a beginner, that counts for something. So it was a cool concept.
Yeah, definitely. I remember playing the one in Middle States, and where I won like a first round match against like a decent, college player. I don't know if it was D3 or D1. And then I played a guy who was like, I think his highest rank was like 619 on the tour, but he was like maybe like 5 or 6 years out of that at least, and lost that one. But really cool, exciting concept. But and actually, one of my podcast guests, Sophie Chang, she was I think the last one to win it, at least, women's side. But, unfortunately, that tournament no longer exists. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on, how you view it. But kind of talk about, as you kind of alluded to, like the major issues with that tournament, because you would think that super cool concept, like you get somebody into qualifying for singles and main draw of doubles, like what's the big deal? It's just like one spot. So like why did they let go of this tournament or stop it? So
the official excuse that the US Open tournament organizers gave, and again, it wasn't like a big cancellation announcement, a big finale, grand finale type of thing. It was really just like a press statement, and like that was it. It's basically, we're not doing it again next year. And their excuse was that they found, and this is honestly a criticism I would have as well. Mm-hmm. They found that professional players were using the national playoffs as a pathway into the US Open, bypassing normal means. So basically, you would have a player ranked like 400 or 500 in the world, someone who should have gone through the normal means of going into the qualifying draw themselves, or playing other type of pre-qualifying tournaments, getting up their ranking and playing the US Open. Instead of doing that, they were entering the national playoffs, destroying all of their opponents up to maybe the final couple matches, and then earning them a spot into the qualifying draw. And I frankly don't blame them. There were no rules at all in the national playoffs. There was no ranking cutoff. There was no skill gap cutoff. Truly it was open to anyone, which makes sense considering the purpose of the tournament. However, through marketing and videos, it was billed as a tournament that like your average Joe was going to receive a wild card spot. And people were excited because like, wow, we get to see like my next door neighbor, on TV playing against Djokovic in the first round of the US Open. And that was far from the case because, by the time you made it to the national tournament at one location, the knockout stage, the winner of that would be, granted the wild card into the qualifying draw. Every single one of those players had professional rankings. If you made it that far, of course, there's still varying quality. Some of them would, be top D1 players. Others would actually be, touring players. But who it was built for and who actually succeeded, complete disparity. So I believe there should have been some extra rules in place to prevent that. I believe they did include seeding at some point, and I know they tweaked some rules at some point, but in the end, after the first couple of years that the USTA saw that attendance was declining and people no longer cared about the tournament in the first place. Like the first year, it was televised, a bunch of press release. They really advertised the heck out of this thing, and a lot of people cared about it. Even myself, I think I signed up the first year or two, and after that, it's like, I guess this thing is still going on. It's cool, I guess, but it's like the hype died down once, especially the first 2 years, the same guy won it twice, which kind of showed that, okay, it's really just another way for professionals to enter this event. It's not really like your average Joe is going to play in the US Open anytime soon. So cool concept, not executed super well, in my opinion. But it's a cool story. You don't really see that in other sports, and you certainly don't see it in tennis that often for your everyday man to have the chance to qualify. And again, this is for men, women. You could do mixed doubles eventually. So it was cool. It was a really cool concept.
So I wonder if that the decline in participation was because, like you said, you'd see like basically professional players like win it year after year. Like, what if they had just made the rules so that if you're outside, if you're within the top 1,000, or if you have an ATP ranking and WTA ranking, then you can't play it. Like, do you think that if they did that, then it would have done better and the participation would have gone up, or do you think it still would have gone down, and that's why USTA just said, "Oh, let's forget about it"?
It's tough to say. It's really tough to say. I personally think it would be really cool if it was amateur only, like you were not allowed to have any sort of previous ranking or anything like that. But that was obviously not the case. And professionals exclusively did play in it. The first year, actually, that it ran, the one of the finalists against Blake Strode, who ended up winning it 2 times, he had a career high ranking of like 80 something in the world, had played in all 4 Grand Slams previously, had made it to the finals of an ATP event at one point in his career. It was pretty crazy. I mean, the guy was, in his early 40s or late 30s, I believe. Wow. So obviously he was not a tour player anymore, but it really showed this is the kind of quality player that we're seeing. So it was really interesting.
Yeah. I guess that's the problem in the end. Like, once you get to even like the national playoff, then you'll be destroyed. But most definitely, like if you get to the qualies of US Open, you'll be destroyed if you don't have a ranking. So yeah, very cool stuff. So another one of your videos that I thought was super interesting, and I had actually wondered like how this happened, and I had never looked into it. And thanks to your video, I learned the synopsis, and it wasn't really. Your videos aren't like super long. I think they're like a perfect length. But like how Boris Becker wasted his $170 million fortune. That's a heck of a lot of money there, Andrew. So, I mean, and I was surprised to learn like the major chunk of it, what that was, which you obviously revealed in the video. But like how, I guess maybe go through kind of like how he amassed the fortune. I mean, obviously some of it from tennis, and then like what was his major downfall to lose it all?
Yeah, so that was a very interesting video to make. I really enjoyed making it. And it's one of those videos, going off on a little tangent here about analytics. I wasn't sure how the video would perform because, again, a lot of my viewers care more so about the on-court stuff and results and match play statistics and stuff like that. If it's going to be controversies, do controversies about the tournaments themselves and what happens on the court. The Boris Becker one didn't really have much to do with on the court. I gave a brief bio about his tennis career, but it was mainly kind of off court controversy. But that video did do very well, which I'm glad about. I think it was a well-made video in the end. But basically, of course, everyone knows Boris Becker, the 1980s and 90s, German darling in many sense in terms of, the great, boom, boom Boris player who did very well. Won Wimbledon at 17 years old. The youngest player still to this day, I believe, to have ever won the singles championships for men. And amassed a great fortune. He had a lot of sponsorships, had the, incredible support from his country and around the world, was, a very good looking, successful guy. Again, he amassed a huge fortune because he was just a nonstop champion. He won a lot of tournaments throughout the late 80s and early 90s. And again, racked up a bunch of sponsorships. And it's one thing that a lot of people don't understand or grasp from his personality, because of the fact that he did waste so much money, was that he was super, super dedicated to the sport. Not enough people give him credit for that. He was very focused, trained intensely. He wasn't like an Andre Agassi who was, super talented and kind of just, not very focused throughout his career. No, he was very focused, wanted to win, had the champion mentality. However, that champion's mentality and that greatness for the sport did not translate over into the business world after he retired. I think that's unfortunately something that's obviously not too uncommon with athletes in general. You have great success in your sport. And then when you try to use that money to grow with risky investments after your career ends, that's where a lot of the problems come in. And the problem with Boris Becker is that I do not believe he had any at all or a sound financial manager in any way. So Boris got involved in a bunch of shady investment deals. He got involved in the .com bubble. He had a nutrition company. He owned a car dealerships. He played professional poker for many years. He I'm missing quite a few now. Yeah, no, he really got anything that was offered his way in terms of sizable capital investment purposes. He gave money into and pretty much lost every investment. Of course, that's only part of the story. His personal problems were even worse. He has an ex-wife and then a separated wife and then an estranged girlfriend, I believe. So he has the trifecta there. He has illegitimate children. Big scandal post Wimbledon. He had a woman was conceived in a broom closet. A woman was not conceived. A baby was conceived afterwards. But yeah, he had some affairs and had to pay child support and money to a couple women for children. And it basically blew up in his face. So goes to show that business prowess does not equal tennis prowess in many ways.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, how about the tax situation?
Right.
Yeah.
Good question. I forgot about that. Yeah. So the worst part of it all was that he claimed to be living in Germany on his tax. He claimed to be living in Monaco on his tax returns, which is, of course, a tax haven. You pay no income tax in that country. However, he had an apartment in Germany and actually spent most of the year in Germany. And the properties got him into a lot of trouble because obviously the authorities found that he did spend his time in Germany, which has a very high tax rate, and ended up going to jail not too long ago because of the effects of that after all these years, So he got caught doing that and didn't pay back what he was supposed to pay back, and then he was found to be hiding assets in the bank accounts of his ex-wife. And he hid his when the authorities came to possess a lot of his assets to pay off creditors, he was hiding his Grand Slam trophies that were supposed to go to auction. And big major scandal with Boris, unfortunately. And it's too bad because when you see him on TV commentating, he does seem like a truly class act guy. He's obviously very knowledgeable at the sport. He did coach Djokovic, after all, through one of his best periods in professional tennis that many people have ever seen. So it is too bad about kind of what's happened to him, but that's that's what happens when you kind of throw your hands into a lot of places that they shouldn't be in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I guess they say something like don't extend your feet more than your blanket or something like that. And like, even though he made all that money, I guess he did. And I think you mentioned the video too that he was like too generous as well.
Right.
So yeah, that's a sad one. And so so he's like actually in jail like right now, and he was watching Wimbledon from jail, basically.
Yeah, that's what the I think the people actually in jail, the people who run the jail actually did put out a press release that Boris was granted time to watch Wimbledon from his jail cell, which sounds very sad when you think about it, because the jail itself was only located kilometers away from the actual grounds of Wimbledon. So to kind of have come from where he was just 30 years prior, 25 years prior to where he is now, yeah, it's a pretty sad decline. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Boris. Of course, it's not a very long jail sentence, just a year or two, and then he'll be out, and hopefully he'll do right with his creditors and kind of ease up his financial situation. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of more aspects to that story, of course, including derelict properties. There were squatters. I don't think I'd include this in the video, but there were squatters living on his Spain property who completely tore the place apart. They were using the solar panels on top of the house to heat the pool. Like they somehow rigged it. It was so bizarre if you saw pictures of that place. But no, that Boris really got himself into some, hot water with a lot of the things he's done and the properties he holds on to. So yeah, I mean, great player. You can't take away his accomplishments in life. It's just kind of to see where he goes now, because he still has a legion of worldwide fans. To this day, of course, he's one of the biggest tennis players of all time. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes from here and the decisions he decides to make once he leaves prison.
For sure, yeah. I mean, you talk about like financial control and all that. I mean, kind of ironically too, because he played poker for a while. But I mean, you have some of like the most talented, best poker players in the world, and I'm a big fan of poker as well. But sometimes they just gamble way too much, or they go on tilt, and then they lose it all. So I mean, that's kind of what Boris did there. And does he have to pay? Like, does he owe 50 million? Is that what he owes to his creditors?
The thing is, I don't think it's set in stone, because there's so many different outlets that give, wildly varying figures on how much. You go as low as 10 million to 100 million owed, which sounds a little ludicrous to me. I seriously doubt it'd be that much. The problem is he owes different banks different amounts, and again, the news sources kind of get it mixed up in terms of what he actually owes to what bank. And the amounts that the bank claims he owes, he outright denies or disputes a lot of their figures, in terms of interest and what was actually given to him versus not. So it's really unknown. I think there's only one bank. It's the one bank that got him sent to jail that he refused to pay back, and which brought about the bankruptcy case in the first place. So I don't think many people actually have a firm figure, but it's definitely not an insignificant amount. He's in hot water there, and hopefully he will sell off the rest of his trophies, because I don't think he can hold on to them much longer without being put in jail again. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, definitely a very, very cool video there, and definitely check that one out. So one that I actually did not yet get to watch, but that I'm curious about, and that makes me kind of sad, I guess, is why tennis balls are an environmental disaster.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what's without giving, I guess, the whole video away if you don't want to, but like, what's the deal with that? Because we just crack them open and play, and we're happy, but we don't really think about that part. So what's going on there?
Yeah. So for those listening who don't know the video, the video is titled why tennis balls are an environmental disaster. That video I created and published in part with Team C's, which is actually a foundation organization founded by Mr. Beast. And,
awesome! Yeah,
they raised money last year. I think they were trying to raise $30 million, and they hit the mark. In terms of collecting trash out of the ocean, in terms of building these ocean robots to kind of sweep the oceans to pick up trash. A really noble effort. And I met Mr. Beast in Vid Summit, a YouTube convention last year. It was super great to meet him. Very humble guy in person. You never know with these big YouTubers, these big media personalities, how they're going to be in person. Super nice guy. Anyway, so yeah, I did that in collaboration with Mr. Beast, me and a bunch of other creators as well. So, it came to me to create a video about environmentalism that also had to do with tennis. Now, tennis, I don't think tennis and environmentalism have ever really been told in the same news story before. I don't think many people actually consider the environmental component of the sport. However, after doing some research, I've kind of always thought about, what does happen to tennis balls after we throw them away? Because, a lot of people, especially when they play matches, they'll crack open a can of balls, they'll use them, and maybe they'll hit with them once or twice more, and then they'll just throw them in the back of their car or chuck them away. And considering how many tennis matches are played and how many people play tennis on a regular basis, you can only imagine the amount of tennis balls that end up in landfills. And now tennis balls are just a plastic coating on top of a rubber, both of which do not degrade really at all in landfills because the glue that holds the two together is so strong and not environmentally friendly that they just sit in landfills and they end up giving off methane over many, many years because of what they're composed of, basically. So it kind of sucks. So I made a video talking about that and basically what people could potentially do about it. Now, some of the solutions, which are not great solutions, I'll tell you that right now. I think tennis is a long way to go in terms of becoming a more environmentally friendly sport and sustainable in a lot of ways. But yeah, so with tennis balls, number one, Wilson created this ball called the Trinity ball. Now, I don't remember if it's a pressureless ball or if it's like a low pressure ball, but it lasts significantly longer than a normal tennis ball does. They're not sold in plastic. They're sold in these like paper cartons, which shows that they do not need to be pressurized. And they're really good for that. So they last a lot longer. You can go significantly longer, like I said, without having to open a new can of tennis balls. And there you go. I mean, I guess that's one solution in many ways. Not great. Another is a company called Recycle Balls. And basically, if you've ever been on a tennis court where there's this like ball recycling station, I know I've seen it at some of the clubs I've played at. They will take your balls, the tennis balls that you chuck in their bins, and they'll repurpose it into other applications, such as they develop this like kind of synthetic court material that you can use at gyms and schools and whatnot, and it's basically created from the rubber and plastic of a tennis ball. It's very interesting. They've developed some clothes like shirts and shoes and whatnot. One of the coolest things I think they've done with the tennis balls is there's in horse stables, the ground is very soft and it's almost like this like straw and whatever soft ground that they use in horse stables. They will grind up the tennis balls and lay it across the ground in these horse stables to create horse footing stuff. I don't know. I'm not the company. I don't really know how they do it, but if you see pictures online, it looks really cool. So again, not even close to being perfect. I seriously doubt they even get a very insignificant portion of the overall tennis ball waste in this country or the world, I should say. But there are organizations doing stuff about it. And there's one more organization, I kind of forget about the name of it. But they actually recycle the tennis ball themselves into other applications in terms of taking out the plastic, taking out the rubber, and doing other stuff with it. So like I said, nothing is great in terms of the current climate of tennis ball recycling and reuse and process of creating the tennis ball itself. I do hope that manufacturers step up to the plate. I think it's honestly up to the USTA, ATP, WTA, other tennis federations around the world to say something about it. I hope some European country or US or Canada is the first to put their foot down on it, because I think a lot of other organizations are doing a lot better jobs in terms of making what they do environmentally friendly, and especially in terms of, environmental awareness these days. But we'll see. I'm very big into environmentalism, so that's why I created the video, and I'd like to see that one day. What I hate personally is, whenever you hit a tennis ball, the little fuzz is always flying off of it. And especially if you're playing on a clay court, you'll see it kind of, lining the ground of the clay court a little bit. and you don't think much about it because if you're outside, it kind of just washes away or you sweep it away. But that's plastic, and that stays where it is indefinitely, and that's not going to break down anytime soon within your lifetime. And that's in the air. If it's windy, it can blow into the waterways. Fish will, eat the little plastic that comes off the tennis ball. Again, if we're talking about the grand scheme of the world, so insignificant compared to the other types of pollution we have littering our waterways. And that was the purpose of the video, Team Seas. But I'm a tennis YouTuber, so that's what I want to talk about. And I just think it's something that people should just keep in mind, I should say. I don't think it's, even me, I don't see myself, if I have the opportunity to recycle my tennis balls, absolutely. If I have the opportunity to purchase the Trinity balls that Wilson has to lengthen the longevity of my tennis ball usage, yes, I'll do it. But there's no easy solution without really taking the extra step to do it. So hopefully it'll be easier in the future, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, super interesting there. And I see the Trinity balls, I'm on my computer as well looking, and some sites actually limit like the amount you can get. Do you have any idea if the Trinity balls, which like you said, last like way longer than normal balls, like do they have like a pretty similar feel so that like, advanced player like yourself and myself wouldn't really matter too much?
I've never played with them, actually. I think I've seen them in stores, but I've yet to buy them. I do want to try it one day. However, when they introduced them, they did use them at a professional event. It was a WTA event.
Oh.
I don't remember if it was a tour event or if it was like a lower league of women's tennis. It's kind of embarrassing.
Or something, or no, yeah, it's Challenger.
It's Futures and Challengers the equivalent for WTA. Is that a thing?
Oh, is it? Oh no, you got me. No, they definitely have Challengers. I think they have both. Yeah,
that's embarrassing for us. But okay, whatever.
That's okay.
Whatever is below the lowest WTA event. I think that was it. Yes, they did use them at a professional event. However, a lot of the comments in my videos when I in that particular video, when I mentioned the Trinity balls, there are some, really varied opinions and criticism about the balls themselves. Some people say it's great. It's a great substitution. Other people say they play like crap. So I'm very interested in trying them out myself and see. I mean, they've been out for a while. I'm sure a lot of the people listening here have probably played with them once, maybe without even knowing. It's an alternative, we're not going to be seeing them used at the US Open anytime soon. Players will not go for anything that's less than an actual tennis ball feel, but a step in the right direction, I should say. So hopefully Definitely. We'll see our sport kind of heading that way in the next few years.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be very good. Yeah, I've seen a mix of like really good reviews and then like, man, not the same, but definitely at least like maybe for like serves and stuff. I would definitely try that. Good stuff. So, so this is like a pretty controversial like topic, and like I pretty much have to fight myself, all the time, like because I'm, I love tennis obviously, and then we have, another sport called pickleball that, sometimes you see them take the courts from us or, just like replace tennis courts with pickleball courts, which I get from an economic perspective and whatnot. But so, we were talking before we started recording, and you mentioned some videos coming up so that we can all look forward to watching. So wonder if you could just, maybe talk a little bit about your thoughts on pickleball.
Yeah. So pickleball is a big thing. A lot of my former college teammates, a lot of people I grew up playing tennis with, a lot of people I've worked with in tennis have now switched to almost exclusively playing pickleball. It's a big thing,
Damn.
And I'll be the first to say I'm not a big fan of seeing my courts that I've played on previously transformed into pickleball courts. Now, it's one thing if you just put down the lines and and it's the rollaway nets, you could just move back and forth. That's whatever. I think pickleball is a good way to get people exercising and playing a racket sport that they would have done nothing otherwise, However, when I see space that was initially reserved for tennis now being used to fit pickleball courts in with permanent nets and permanent lines and all of that, I don't know. What do you think? First of all, let me ask you.
Yeah, it definitely makes me Maybe not. Yeah, pretty close to angry, I guess. Yeah, it's just really a shame. Like, because then I just think like, that show American Greed. I just think of the guy saying it because it's just like, it's all like economics. It's like, okay, yeah, I know you can replace this one court with like was it 3 or 4 pickleball courts, something like that,
Yeah.
and like make more money. But yeah. And then, the other part of me is like, it's like, I mean, tennis is definitely like a tougher sport in terms of like, techniques and it's bigger court. And it's basically like, it's like when I see the younger, and I don't know if this may sound bad, like, especially like younger tennis players switch to pickleball, like the ego part of me is like, what, you can't handle tennis? But, I don't know. I mean, it's different, but, yeah, I just, especially when I hear like pickleball players, like, trying to troll or make fun of tennis and saying like, oh, tennis is going down. I'm like, man, you can't handle tennis, can you? So I constantly have to patrol myself because there's obviously a lot of good people like playing pickleball. And like, I agree with you, the seniors, especially, like, I totally get it. You switch to something easier, but, yeah, it just, definitely very perturbed to see, tennis, courts taken over. It's not a good thing for me to see. I hate it.
Yeah, I mean, roasting aside, I do understand the value of the sport and why it's become so popular. Truly anyone of any age can pick up a pickleball paddle. Would you call it?
It is, yeah.
Paddle, right? And start getting a rally going. I think people who've played tennis a lot of their lives, or even people who've been playing for many, many years, they kind of forget or don't appreciate the amount of time that was initially put into their training to get them to the point that they can consistently rally. And I know firsthand a number of people I've known who kind of just quit tennis after a few weeks or months because they weren't seeing much progress. And tennis is one of those sports where, I mean, it's so great when you can finally start hitting the ball and getting rally goings and really develop your strokes, because it becomes truly a lifelong sport after that.
Yeah.
And that's why I love tennis so much. However, pickleball, you can kind of just pick up the paddle and start playing immediately. In many aspects, some people are just generally unathletic in terms of growing up, so it does take them a little while longer to get it going. But you get some doubles going, and especially if it's like an event, kind of like a drinks and pickleball type thing, it's just fun and casual, which I truly do understand the purpose. And I think I read recently that pickleball, now far surpassed becoming something of $100 million industry. If I'm not sure if that was the U.S. or the world, but it is a massive sport now that your mom and dad have heard of, and are a lot of times are playing. And if they want to take up tennis and find that it's too hard, just take up pickleball is a lot of people's mindset now. So it's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, as we were saying before, our call started here today, I'm going to be making a video on that and kind of going through the history of the sport, how it became so popular. I'd really love to research people who invented the sport and kind of what their purpose was, and basically how it's affecting what I'm most interested in is how is it affecting the sport of tennis today, and where do we see ourselves a few years down the line in terms of, will pickleball truly become almost mainstream like tennis is? Tennis has such a history and legacy throughout the world. I don't think pickleball would come close to matching that in terms of not sure the word I'm looking for, but the impact that tennis has on the world. I don't think it'll ever be a sport like that, but like ping pong, everyone plays ping pong. Everyone loves table tennis. I think pickleball could really be like that, where it's like, yeah, let's go play some pickleball. I maybe I have like a little court in my community or my apartment complex. We have pickleball courts. Let's just go take them and play, because it's so easy. It's so pick up and go. It's like having a volleyball court. Wherever you live, it's pick up and go. You don't really need to train to play. You just pick up and start playing for half an hour. You get some good exercise, and that's it. So I don't see pickleball becoming like this big, like, grand slams, like, the whole world is watching. You have royalty going to the tournaments, but it really is going to become a really casual, fun, very popular sport. I see becoming, for better or worse. I think it's really just the tennis people who are annoyed about this. I don't think the world actually cares that this is going on. I think just tennis players hate that it's kind of encroaching on existing tennis facilities, and it's taking pros away and budget away from improving tennis facilities and going towards pickleball, because again, it's easy money, it's easy revenue. There's very little upkeep, and you don't really need very experienced people teaching. Like before I did YouTube, I was teaching tennis for many years, and I taught in Florida, northern Florida. And we had some pickleball courts back there. And because I was the new guy there, I was just the designated pickleball pro, even though I didn't play. I did. And that's the thing. Pickleball is really just kind of half volleys and volleys. You know, that's really it. Yeah. As long as you're kind of holding a continental grip on the paddle, it's really just kind of teaching people how to, you know, hold it like this, forward, backwards, and you got some serving, and that's really it. And the people who take pickleball lessons are absolute beginners in tennis and pickleball. They have no idea what they're doing. So it's like magic. When you teach them, you just got to push it over. It's, wow, this is great. Again, I'm not trying to roast people who play pickleball or take up pickleball. It's, if you're not going to be doing anything else, if you're not playing tennis otherwise, yeah, great. Pick up a paddle sport. I'm all for it. But if you're taking it up because it's easier than tennis, and you find yourself getting into it easier than tennis, I think that's a little bit of a shame. You're denying yourself the privilege of really putting yourself into a lifelong sport that I think is fundamentally better in pickleball in every way. I mean, that's coming from someone who just loves tennis, you know. But yeah, so I think that's a great video topic. Anyway, getting back to what we were saying, I think a lot of people would love to watch that. And yeah. It's gonna be fun. I mean, that's basically what I like to make YouTube videos about. It's really just, do I like it? Do I think other people might be interested in it? You know, of course I look at analytics, and I see trends, and I see what people may want to watch. And I do enjoy getting comments of people's video topics and ideas and suggestions. But in the end, it comes down to, if I'm not having fun making the video, then I'm not going to make the video. And I don't mean to sound snobbish, but you know, it's if I'm sitting at a computer for 80 hours working on this video, I hope I'm going to like it, because otherwise it's going to be a miserable 80 hours. Yeah. So that's my mindset there.
Good stuff. Yeah, I think we pretty much perfectly align with you know, pickleball and tennis. And I guess real quick before I ask you, I mean, more broadly about just YouTube in general and what you've been doing, is like, what do you think about pickleballs? I just saw an ad for Top Court while I was actually watching called Tennis on YouTube, and it was actually it was for a pickleball lesson on Top Court. And then, you know, you've seen like a pickleball like on Tennis Channel as well. So do you have any thoughts on that? Because definitely a lot of people were also perturbed, to use that word again, because I think during the City Open, for example, I remember people were wondering, like, where is the women's, like, where are the women's matches? And they were showing like pickleball. I don't know, you know, obviously the contracts for TV, I don't know how that would work, but what do you think about the inclusion of tennis on like predominantly like tennis channels? Like, shouldn't they have their own pickleball channel or something?
Wait, so going back to your first comment, on Top Court, they're teaching pickleball now.
Yeah, I saw an ad with like two pickleball instructors, and they're like, "Oh, we're your instructors," and it was Top Court.
Now, I really wonder who the audience for that is, honestly, like online instruction for pickleball, because I truly see pickleball as very much a pickup. You know, tennis, you're really looking for the fundamentals. You know, you probably already play tennis, but you want to learn from the pros exactly how they're, you know, hitting the topspin on their forehand, exactly how they're getting that extra kick on their second serve. You know, how are they hitting that drop volley? You know, we're more so looking for the fundamentals and match strategy. For pickleball, I mean, first of all, we're looking at a much smaller segment in terms of who's actually at the level that they need that special training from professionals. That's very interesting to me. I did not know that, although I'll have to look into that myself. Going back to your second comment, though, yeah, that's I equate the Tennis Channel showing pickleball over a major tournament final to MTV playing reality shows over scheduled music programming. You know, it's jarring and very bizarre to see. And again, I truly wonder who they think the market segment is. I don't see pickleball as this rabid fan base that is clamoring to network TV to watch a tournament. I see that great for being like online streams and YouTube and Facebook. I see it all over there for the tournaments. But for Tennis Channel to be showing pickleball over major events, I guess it does show how the market is shifting in terms of what type of programming they think their viewers are going to want to see. It's crazy. I think it's crazy. I think it's a bad move on their part. Again, if it was dead programming, or dead air, sure. But to kind of prioritizing pickleball over many ways. And yeah, I have seen online on like Reddit and whatnot, Tennis Channel just getting roasted in terms of their programming decisions. And I'm curious, what their production manager of some sorts is thinking in that decision. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I obviously have to be a little careful because, Tennis Channel, like I'm on my podcast is on their network, but I still, obviously this is like, constructive criticism. Yeah, I think pickleball should just probably, have their own sort of thing. I think that, Tennis Channel, it's called tennis. They should maximize like tennis on it. So I really don't know. And just, obviously some connections I have there. Maybe I can ask them like the thought process, but yeah, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan, but again, if there's some other reasoning, like, there's always sometimes some reasoning that you haven't thought of, maybe it's there. I don't know, but
yeah. I do see Tennis Channel, if we're going to be specifically talking about the Tennis Channel, and obviously I don't know anyone there personally, so I'm just saying this pure conjecture. I do see them transitioning into more of like just like a racket enthusiast type of platform, where maybe they would even show like paddle, down the line in terms of the type of programming they're offering. If that's what they're going for, I could see that happening because I do see the market shifting there. Alternative racket sports are becoming huge, all over the world. You can play, again, a racket type sport on the cheap during the winter, in a lot of sports, paddle. And one sport I see on YouTube, which I think is awesome, is called touch tennis. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or seen of it, but it's basically regular tennis, but just with softer balls on a mini tennis court. You're playing with mini rackets, and they're actually serving and volleying and rallying. And I think that's the coolest sport personally, because it's actually fast-paced fun. Pickleball doesn't really resemble tennis in many ways, aside from kind of the volley aspect. Yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see over the next 10, 15 years. And you bring up a good point that I should actually touch on. Are these alternative racket sports going to become more formidable in terms of actual competition to the sport? Especially for the USTA to kind of contend with. Is the USTA going to implement an alternative racket sport into their repertoire of things that they actually promote through the country? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think tennis will ever be kind of knocked off as the top dog of racket sports. I mean, I don't see how that would be possible. I don't even think it would make sense, because tennis is in a completely different ball game in terms of the skill needed. It's going to be interesting to see. I think pickleball is interesting. I don't love it, but I think it's a very interesting sport.
Yeah, definitely. I'm wondering, like, are there, how, like, obviously we start, a lot of us at a young age, like training all the time. Like, are they actually doing that? Like, are there like 8, 9-year-olds like in these like elite pickleball camps? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I would love to see that. I have no doubt that's going to be something that will be marketed, especially in the future. But obviously, I don't think there's any top pickleball player out there, people that consider themselves professionals and, are professionals in any way. I don't think there's one out there who, took up pickleball as like their sport. It's obviously all ex-tennis players who transition to pickleball because for their lifestyle, it makes sense. It's going to be interesting if over the next 10, 15, 20 years in the US or even around the world, if pickleball takes up more over there, if we have people taking a traditional route of beginning with pickleball, are we going to see pickleball academies?
Yeah.
Or are we going to see like pickleball taught at schools? Actually, I think they do teach pickleball at schools and gym and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Maybe we need to open that up, Andrew. Partner up. Go against our inner words and
cult pickleball. I don't know why. I think tennis is where it's at. Cult pickleball is where the real viewers are going to come from.
Yeah. Made a big mistake, Andrew. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, good stuff, man. I launched into like all these videos because I'm, just so excited to discuss the stories with you, and perhaps I should have gone in reverse, but I guess, and I know you have to go pretty soon, so kind of just I'm curious to know like the beginning of like why you decided to create the channel, like what the catalyst was, and then kind of maybe like your vision for the future and moving forward.
Yeah, sure. So I haven't talked about this much because I don't normally do a ton of podcasts. But so basically, how I got interested in YouTube and what I do now. That's basically what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very quick gist. So I've been a tennis player all my life. Not a fantastic player, not a bad player, a good player. I played Division III college throughout school. I graduated actually with a degree in nutrition and dietetics. So that's kind of where I thought I'd be heading. Actually, initially, my first major was computer science. Was not good at that. Switched to microelectronic engineering. That was not a good fit for me. And then I went to nutrition and dietetics. I don't know, after all these years, I've actually started thinking about it more this year. I'm 27 now. Why for so long I thought math and science was going to be it for me, because I'm clearly not good at it at all. Truly, I'm very terrible at math and science. So, and I'm very good at like English and writing and research and all of that. I don't know why.
Your family in that? Your family maybe, or
well, my dad's a physician. So,
Okay.
not that I was inspired to take up the health and science field because of that. I just thought, it makes good money generally, engineering, health science, medicine. I'll pursue something in that, and if I'm not good at it, I'll just work hard and I'll become good at it. Well, I never became good at it. After all those years of trying, I just realized it's not for me. So anyway, I graduated with a degree in nutrition dietetics. With dietetics, basically what you're supposed to do, you graduate. In order to become a practicing dietitian, at least now, you have to get your master's degree. I don't think it has to be in the field of nutrition or dietetics, but you have to get a master's degree, and you need to do a 6 to 12 months of an unpaid internship at a hospital or facility. I graduated with my degree, and I just said, I'm not doing that. I already am not, because dietitians don't make a lot of money. They make maybe $40,000 to $45,000 starting out. And then after 5-10 years, you're maybe getting to the $50,000 to $60,000 mark. It depends on what organization you work for, private or public. That was not for me. I just didn't even like it enough to want to do that. So I taught tennis at it's basically a tennis management company here in the US for a few years. I traveled all over the world, all over the country doing it, and it was great. Worked in Texas, Maryland, Florida for a while. So I kind of jumping back and forth from a bunch of facilities. I got to go to a lot of great events because of it. And then in early 2020, this is actually right before the pandemic hit, I liked what I was doing. However, I just did not see it as a lifelong thing for me. I did not think that I was, an all-time great coach, that it's like, this has to be my passion because I'm so good at it and everyone loves what I do. I did think I was a good pro, but it's not like I was going to make a big impact in this world if I stay as a pro. I just didn't have the skills to become that, great pro everyone talks about. So if I'm not doing something that I think I'm very good at and providing a great service to my community it's like, why am I doing this? I'm kind of just not wasting my youth away, but I want to do something that I'm truly passionate about, and I think that I can be the best at what I do in some regards. So I don't know. One day I just had this idea. I had never, ever considered YouTube prior, but one night I was just like, why don't I do this YouTube thing? It sounds pretty cool. And I went on, and I think one of my big issues is that no one previously did good tennis related content similar to what I do now. Now, YouTube is primarily instruction. A lot of people just with their channels and cameras teaching how to do forehands, backhands, serves, match instruction, match play footage. A lot of highlight channels, obviously, for professional tennis as well. I was interested in none of that. That's just not what I find interesting. I don't watch those type of videos. What I love are documentary channels, video essays, channels that I'm interested in the subject and I can learn a little bit about the subject's history in a short time, 8 to 10 minutes. Like, wow, that was a cool video. I want to learn more about this topic, and I'll subscribe to this channel. And there's nothing quality related when it came to tennis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought I could do it better than anyone else was. There wasn't a lot of people doing it, but I thought I could do it better. However, I had never edited a video before. I had never done a research script for tennis. I'm not a tennis journalist. I've never written anything on tennis prior. I just had all these ideas in my head. Man, this would be a cool video. You know, it'd be a cool video if I talked about that one year in 2012 that the Madrid Open used blue clay instead of red. Like I always thought about that as a kid. Like
that did so pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. That video did very well. But no one ever made a video about that. But it's like such an interesting topic, and so many tennis fans around the world. You know, Adidas one year came out with this bizarre racket that no one used that they marketed heavily, and it was a complete failure. And I remember seeing people playing with it when I was a kid. Why does no one talk about that? That'd be such a cool topic. Adidas, this major brand, like absolutely failing at a major tennis product. Like no one's ever talked about that. No one talks. I mean, people have talked about Federer's deal with like Uniqlo, but like no one talks about how does Hawkeye work? You know, how is it right? You know, a lot of these questions internally I had, it's like, I was probably going to go on Wikipedia and look up how it worked anyway. But if I'm doing it, why not actually make a script about it, right? Why not make a video about it? So, I mean, that really goes for anyone aspiring to do YouTube. You don't have to start out knowing everything. You don't have to start off knowing anything. I downloaded iMovie. I bought this like crappy, it's actually over there still. It's like this blue Yeti microphone. It's actually not too bad. It's a decent microphone. But I started off with my 2015 MacBook back in 2020, iMovie and a microphone I bought for $80 off Amazon. And that's it. When I wasn't teaching at nights, my first video was about Donald Young. He's one of my favorite players. Controversial in the fact that he doesn't win, but I thought he had a good story. So I made videos on, again, what I was interested in. My first video about Donald Young. Whose first video is going to be about Donald Young? My second video was about Marcus Willis, who went through pre-qualifying at Wimbledon and somehow qualified for the entire tournament, beating like Andrei Rublev and Medvedev and qualifying. Crazy story before they were big players. So it was really half for my own benefit. Like I thought these random topics were cool. Maybe someone would want to watch it. Again, start off with iMovie. I started off with very, very terrible edits. It's one of those things where you look back at your earliest content. I'm pretty sure you're the same thing with the podcast. Yeah. You look back at the earliest videos like, oh God, I sound so amateur and terrible. And I can't even like listen or watch this anymore. That's how I feel about the early videos. But so I did that. And then I did that for about a month or two. And then COVID hit. And then I was furloughed from work for about 2-3 months. And I had nothing to do. So I thought it'd be a really cool decision to work on YouTube like it was my full-time job because I was doing nothing else. I wasn't getting paid. I had maybe 100 subscribers for 6 months or so. And I just worked on videos nonstop, like literally setting a schedule for myself, 8 hours a day. Like I'm going to start work at this time, end at this time, and that's it. And I did that for many, many months on end. My videos were getting maybe 100, 200 views. The Blue Clay video, which now has almost 8 million views for the first 9 months, had about 350 views, 400 views. If I was getting like 5 views a day, I was like, man, this is awesome. People people are interested in what I'm saying about this topic. And, you know, obviously when I first make the videos, it's my best work to that date. So I was like, this is such like good quality editing. I'm really getting better. And I was getting better. I was taking a lot of inspiration from other video essay creators. I was taking notes on what they did right. I was looking at analytics. I was figuring out, where people were tuning out of my videos. I was, making the intros more concise. I was improving the motion graphics work. I was figuring out how to do a little bit of 3D editing. I was improving the script so it was more concise, and I was actually getting to the point earlier. And again, I was making videos for no one. It was really just it was myself. I showed my girlfriend. She said it was great. Good job, Andrew. I got back to work teaching tennis, and that was that. And then about 7 to 8 months after I started my channel, it was actually my birthday, which is September 18th, only a couple weeks ago now. Thank you. In 2020, that I was at a bar with my friends, and I saw the Blue Clay video was like taking off. Now, taking off for me, at that point, I was lucky to get 100 views a day, 150 views a day. Like I was like, maybe if I got like 3 to 5 subs a day, I was like, this will add up to like a couple hundred one day or 1,000. If I hit 1,000 subs, I'll be monetized. I'll actually make money from what I'm doing. Maybe I'll quit my job in 5 years and try to focus on this with 10,000 subs. The video took off, getting maybe 50 to 100,000 views an hour. And I was, you know,
Wow. Do you know how or like why or what?
Well,
It's the algorithm.
that actually was a second video that took off technically. For some reason, the Marcus Willis video, the pre-qualifier at Wimbledon, was getting like it was starting to get like 1,000 to 2,000 views every hour for a couple days. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And then it kind of died down. So I was like, that was a cool spike, back to reality. And then I guess a bunch of those people watched the blue clay video that YouTube found it that everyone was clicking on the thumbnail. I saw like the thumbnail stats. It was crazy. Like, 25% of people were clicking on the video that saw the impression. And oh my God, the blue clay video took off where within 3 to 4 days, the video had, 2-3 million views. I had thousands of subscribers overnight. I instantly became monetized, and the video was bringing in maybe $700 to $800 a day.
Nice.
And instantly it clicked. I was like, wow, there's potential here. Why am I working a job where I make less than that when I could, if I get one of these hits every 3 to 4 months, it's paying my bills and more. And I actually like what I'm doing. So I quit my job. Not too long after that, maybe two months later, I quit my job and I started doing YouTube full time. Now, I'm not going to say it's been like a awesome, trajectory upwards consistently for the last 2 or so years. And it mainly has to do with me. It doesn't have to do with YouTube. YouTube's been great to me, and I've consistently gotten paid. And the work I put in is the exposure and the impressions, the money I get out of it, which is fantastic. It's a tough transition going full time to working by yourself. There's a lot more responsibility on yourself. I'm personally, at least not yet, the best business minded. So when it comes to hiring, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to social media, I have to say, still to this day, and it's to the disappointment of a lot of people watch my videos, I'm not great at that extra stuff. And which is why I know I have the money to do so. So I really need to get hiring and have people help me with some of the stuff I don't like, so I can start to focus on the things that I am good at, which is creating YouTube videos. I think my creativity and the way I script my videos and the ways I edit are the things I'm actually good at. So I need to focus on that and focus less on the other stuff that I could hire someone to help me do. And hopefully over time, my ultimate goal is to really not hand off Colt Tennis in any way, but I'd really like to have a team working with me to create the videos so that 100% of the stuff, thumbnail creation, research, script writing, editing, creating the motion graphics, the titles, the SEO, everything doesn't have to rely on me on a 10-day basis, rolling basis, and I'd like to create other types of YouTube content that is not just video essays. I have all this great camera gear that I bought to start a second channel that I have not even picked up because I'm not sure if stressed is the right word, but just, and burnt out is not the right word either. But I'm too much in my head in terms of what I think the next great business move is, that I'm starting to lose focus on what made the channel the greatest in the first place. So we're starting to see these big gaps in my videos in terms of publishing dates, where I am working on them, but I'm trying to work on so many things at once that it's like the main thing I'm supposed to work on is really starting to get pushed back. And man, I really went off on a tangent here in terms of how I started doing what I'm doing. But that's kind of the life cycle of a YouTuber. My situation is not unique in any ways. I'm sure a lot of people deal with the pressures and the challenges of being a full-time content creator like myself. But what I do want to express, I'm not showing any disdain, or I'm not trying to harp on the negatives of what I do. I love what I do. I think I have the best job in the world, and what I do is not hard. A lot of content creators will say, "Oh my gosh, my job is so hard. I have to be up at this time. I have to talk with the brands. I have to do the marketing." Like, come on, it is challenging, but it's not hard. So I love what I do, and hopefully, I'll get some of the little quirks and tough spots ironed out, where I'm running a more, running a business more like clockwork. Yeah, streamline. That's the word I was looking for, as opposed to kind of this stuttering, intermittent video upload schedule that I've been doing. So that's what I'm working on right now, to kind of summarize everything from the start to now, where I'm at. I love making YouTube videos. I love what I do. I love publishing a video and seeing the awesome comments from people who enjoy my channel and saying that, there's nothing else like what you do, or, I'm not a fan of tennis in general, but I love your videos. Can't stop watching them. It's like, anything like that. It doesn't matter how many subscribers or how many views or how much money you've made doing what you do. It's every time you see that, it's like, wow, I'm really making a difference in someone's life. Whereas before, when I was teaching tennis, I was making a difference in the lives of people I taught as well. I had some great clients, some people who really loved me and loved coming to lessons and paying me a decent amount of money to teach them. However, I was spending 1 hour improving one person's life. Mm-hmm. Whereas now I create a video and hopefully I'm bringing pleasure to millions of people's days. And I think my impact, my skill set is better suited for that line of work than what I was doing before. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why I enjoy it so much. And hopefully I can make a bigger impact down the line. And, I'm not in it for money. If I can make, enough money to pay my rent and pay the bills, that's great. Otherwise, I just want to get money to buy more equipment to make better videos, mm-hmm. which is what I've been doing. So that's where I'm at. That's where the future is hopefully heading. And I just want to create better videos for as long as I can see in the foreseeable future. So we'll see.
Awesome, man. Yeah, definitely. Think of how well you're doing now. If you could just outsource a few things and, create the processes to make that happen. So yeah, awesome stuff. And yeah, Andrew, I know you mentioned a certain timeline, which you've gone over, so I apologize. But it's been great having you on, Andrew. Definitely really want people to check out Cult Tennis on YouTube. We'll have the link in the show notes page. And I guess any last thoughts before we close this one out, Andrew?
No, thanks so much for having me on. Again, I don't do podcasts very often, mainly because I like having absolute control of what I say and how it goes out. I'm a stuttering mess when I'm talking off script, as you can see. I kind of just go off on tangents and whatnot. I like my videos because I spend all the time I want creating a script, and then I just read off the script, and there's no superfluous words coming out of my mouth that shouldn't be. But no, this is great because, obviously we're friends and I like you. So that's why it was great to do this. I hope anyone who found what I said was interesting today, absolutely check out my YouTube channel, Cult Tennis. I love to talk about the sport, the history of the sport, the players, tournaments, controversies, because, a lot of times what I find interesting was other people find interesting. As we said, hopefully soon I have a video coming out on pickleball. I'd love to talk about pickleball's impact on tennis. What else did I say? Didn't I told you before. I have a video coming out on world team tennis.
That's right. That's right.
Again, it sounds so random when I just bring it up like that, but I'll be talking about, world teams tennis place in today's day and age, where it's really, people mainly care about the ATP WTA. Why is this third party league still a thing, attracting top players to play in them? What are they paying them? How are they getting attendance? I think it's a very interesting story in there because world team tennis is very old. It's as old as the open era of tennis goes back. I guess I won't say what the topic is, but I do have a video coming out in about 2 days or so. Again, I'm from Central Florida, so we have a major hurricane coming as of this recording. So if my power doesn't go out, if the internet does not go out, we'll see the video in a couple of days. Otherwise, just like the rest of my videos that seem to come out when they come out, it'll come out eventually. So yeah, thanks again for having me on. Love talking to you, and I'll have to do it again someday.
Yes, stay safe over there in Florida, and just really looking forward to your content. And yeah, I mean your editing has really evolved. By the way, like the manner of the edits and also the frequency, I think keeps people like super engaged, and it's part of why you're doing so well, Andrew. So thanks again for coming on, and hope to talk soon. And again, be safe, and take care.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thanks. All right. I really hope that you enjoyed my interview with Andrew from Cult Tennis. I definitely highly encourage you all to check out Cult Tennis's YouTube channel. Just type in Cult Tennis on youtube.com or click the link in the show notes page, as well as visit Cult Tennis's Instagram page. And if you enjoyed this episode, and if you really got some good value or entertainment, obviously, for this one from it, then I'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review for the Tennis Files podcast. And you can do that by going to tennisfiles.com/Apple Podcasts with an S at the end, or click the review button on your favorite podcast app of choice that you use to listen to the show. I just find that Apple Podcasts is the one that moves the needle the most in terms of getting the show higher up the rankings, and it's the most used one. So yeah, it would really help if you left a review and to let me know how you think the show is doing. Really appreciate that very much. And I also would like to leave you with a quote, as I often do at the end of every show. And this one is by, we have Anonymous today. And the quote is, "You're busy doubting yourself while others are intimidated by your full potential." People seem to really like that one when I posted it on Instagram. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you've been improving your game and just being the best you can and improving every day. So with that, thanks so much for listening, and I will see you on the next episode of the Tennis Files podcast. This is Mirabon Aranshad signing out.